Welcome back to Mindi and the Mic from Stigma to Connection, where we try to bridge the gap from stigma to connection through inspiring conversations. Today's guest, I am joined by Emanuel. He actually went to the same college as Tony, the NFL player that was on the podcast a couple months back. And he is a former college player from NC State, a professional athlete, and an advocate for mental health. Emanuel has a fascinating story of resilience from navigating injuries during his athletic career at NC State to his transition into professional football in Canada. Now working with Deloitte, Emanuel continues to make an impact blending his passion for mental health with his professional pursuits. In this episode, we dive into his journey, explore the challenges of athletes face off and on the field, and discuss how community, adaptability, and intentional living can shape personal growth. I hope that you enjoyed this episode because Emanuel has some really good insights I'm excited to share with you all. So enjoy! I'm Mindi, and I have a microphone. So this must be Mindi and the Mic from Stigma to Connection. Let's have a conversation. Welcome back to Mindi and the Mic from Stigma to Connection. Today's guest is a friend of a previous guest of mine, Tony Adams, and today I have Emanuel on with me, who you not grew up. Did you grow up with Tony, or you just went to college with him, right?
I went to college with Tony, but I met Tony in high school. So Tony's from Charlotte, and I'm from Durham, North Carolina. So we kind of just are in the same orbit. So yeah, me and Tony kind of met in high school, and then continued our relationship on in college.
Nice. And you guys played football together, correct?
Yeah, football at NC State. We both play offensive line, so we're both like big, heavy guys.
What was your position?
Offensive. I play offensive tackle, and Tony play offensive guard. So if you know anything about football, it's the five offensive line positions. So we played, beside each other. So yeah.
Awesome. And how did that shape your journey just as an athlete going to NC State and, I don't know, in your own personal life?
No, for sure. Well, I mean, I grew up in Durham, North Carolina, and so the football scene where I was from was pretty competitive. And so I went to a high school called Hillside, which is, one of the, best football high schools in North Carolina. So I had an opportunity to kind of lay a foundation there and ended up, choosing to go to NC State. And, I really enjoyed it. I was about 10 minutes from home. Right down the road from Raleigh, and so it was a great experience. I definitely enjoyed it, and it definitely was able to shape me as an athlete, as a professional, and also as a man.
Yeah, what led you to choose NC State? Just because it was close by and it was pretty well known?
Well, I mean, coming out of high school, I was thinking about potentially going to Georgia, and then I committed to UNC. My sister played basketball at UNC, and then my other sister went to UNC, and both of my parents went to UNC for grad school. So it was kind of like a house divided when I chose NC State because the rivalry. But I mean, I just ended up choosing NC State just because the campus. I really had a good rapport with the coaches and some of the guys that I had grown to know through recruitment, and so I just thought it was the best decision for me.
Yeah. Can you tell me just about your time as a student athlete, just some of the mental health struggles there, or even just the practical challenges of balancing academics and sports?
No, for sure. I mean, I think, well, for one, I mean, in my own experience, when I first got to NC State, I was somewhat of a big, highly touted recruiter, however you want to call it, coming out of high school. And so when I got to NC State, I was, expected to be like, the next big thing or whatever. And I actually encountered some injuries when I first got to college. So redshirt freshman year, I was potentially going to start going into the year and ended up messing up my knee that summer, and then came the next year and broke my foot. And so, like within my first 3 years of college, I essentially had two season ending injuries. And so it definitely impacted me. And I think, that's when I, came to realize the importance of mental health. It wasn't something that, was talked about, obviously definitely wasn't talked about in high school at the high school level.
Yeah.
Wasn't talked about on the college level either. And so, kind of just going through my own experiences, I definitely started to gain an appreciation for mental health and also just for the student athlete experience. I think, when you're in college, it's a vulnerable time, because you're turning from an adolescent into an adult. And so you're going through those struggles right there and the social struggles and the pressure of having to perform on the field and, have good grades. among other things. And so, I think, throughout all my experiences in college, that's when I really began just to gain, an appreciation for the student athlete experience.
Yeah, yeah. And you kind of talked about too just discovering more about mental health in college. Was there like a turning point of when you just, well, I guess, wanted to learn more about, or just through your injury?
When I had my injuries is when I realized, that um, internal things can impact you externally. I was having
Yeah.
my own battle within myself, and that's when I realized, that this can also impact, your day to day activities and how you're in community with people, how you're socializing with people. And I was kind of, when I had my injuries, I was kind of shooting myself off and was kind of, you know, essentially being like the deer who was in the woods and wants to go die alone. That's kind of that's kind of how I kind of approached it, which is not a healthy way. That's when I kind of
Yeah.
realized, you got to kind of find some healthy ways to cope. Being alone is not one of them. You got to kind of share, and talk with people, and that's when I was able to kind of utilize some resources at NC State. We had, sports psychiatrists, and one guy who was a sports psychiatrist, but also had a therapy background. I actually ended up, going to therapy services with him for about a semester, and
Wow.
having an opportunity to
Awesome.
kind of talk to him. No, it was a great experience because he was able to kind of peel back the onion, and kind of show me some scars that within myself that I didn't even realize. If I didn't take the time to actually go speak to somebody, and so I think going through those experiences made me realize that as humans, we're by our nature we're meant to be in community, and so you can't do things on your own. You got to be able to surround yourself around a support system and friends and loved ones and all that stuff.
Yeah, I love how you say that too, because in another podcast, I talk about how, like, I think some people just go to therapists and they just
Yeah,
think, like, oh, I'm covered, but they don't really actually actively look for community outside of their therapist. And I'm a therapist,
100%.
and I can honestly say
Yeah,
that's really unhealthy not to have
yeah.
community outside of your therapist.
No, for sure. Well, you gotta have community in general. I think that when I was going through my injuries, I was like, I want to be alone. I want to be by myself, and I'm gonna figure it out with
Mhm.
myself, and I'm gonna prove everybody wrong. And that's not a healthy mindset to have, because we're all struggling. We all have our own internal battles that nobody can see, and so trying to be by yourself is probably the worst thing you can do.
Yeah, it's so isolating, and probably your mental
Yeah.
health probably downfell because of that too.
Oh no,
Isolation and just
definitely,
being alone. Yeah. Yeah,
definitely,
can you tell
definitely.
me a bit about your transition then from playing college football to professionally playing in the CFL?
Yeah, so I got done in 2020. Tony is a little older than me, but I got done in 2020. So I was a COVID athlete, and so unfortunately, a lot of things that shut down. I didn't have the traditional, off season experience that seniors have who are
Mhm.
trying to
Mhm.
transition to the professional level. And so because of COVID, my pro day got canceled. And I was really looking forward to that because with all my injury riddled history, I kind of really saw that as an opportunity to kind of go out there and show the scouts, NFL scouts, that I could be healthy and all those good things. And so a lot of opportunities were derailed because of COVID. I ended up getting invited to a mini camp by an NFL team, and the NFL ended up canceling the mini camps because of COVID. And so I ended
Jeez.
up, yeah, it was pretty rough. It was pretty rough. So I
Yeah.
actually, so I ended up moving home. And luckily, I was prepared to, really enter the workforce. And so I started working a job for the North Carolina Department of Administration as a project coordinator. It was still, working out and training and trying to find a football opportunity. Was hoping to, get a call or something. The CFL was canceled that year as well. So the only opportunity, you could possibly get was the NFL, but they had cut
Mhm.
down rosters and they weren't bringing in people for tryouts or nothing. And so
Yeah, yeah.
ended up going through basically the entire 2020 football season. I didn't play football. I was just working and just working out and training. But then there was this league called the Spring League, which morphed into the USFL, which is now the UFL, the Rocks League. Originally, it was called the Spring League. And so I had an opportunity to play in that. There was a guy, a coach had called me. One of the guys from the USFL, I mean, from the Spring League team had signed to an NFL team. And he ended up calling me and asking me if I wanted to come and play in their last game of their season in front of some scouts. Essentially, the Spring League is like it's like the G League or such. I guess how you can explain it. Where essentially NFL and CFL scouts would come watch guys who are post grad to see if they want to
Yeah.
bring them in on their team. And so ended up going to the spring league, which I played in Indianapolis. I did that. I played in literally one game, and I was there for 1 week. I played in one game, and for me, honestly, I thought it was my last opportunity playing football. I just went up there and just was like, I'm gonna give it everything I got. Went up there and played in one game, and a couple weeks later, I guess I did good enough to get recognized by some CFL teams, and started getting some calls. And the Edmonton Elks ended up calling me later that summer, which is a team in the CFL, and ended up going packing my bags and going to Canada to play football. So
Nice. And then how long
yeah.
were you in Canada for?
Yeah, I was there on and off for 2 years. So I played there
Okay.
the 2021 season, and then came back home, started working, was working out, training or whatever, and then went back up in 2022. Went through training camp, and then made it through a couple of games. I actually got injured, and ended up getting
Oh
cut, and
shoot.
had to come back. Had to come back and pivot and figure out what was next. So.
Yeah, yeah. But was that transition hard going from like the US to Canada just to play football and then also just to time off too? That was like some crazy I just life in general was probably crazy back then.
Oh no, it was a lot going on, but I mean,
Yeah.
it was it
Yeah.
was a great experience though, just because I was 20, I was 24, 25 at the time, and so
Okay.
being able to travel. I mean, I got a chance to go to pretty much every city in Canada, for
Wow.
free, and so I kind of
Mhm.
saw like an opportunity like that. I get to play football, and I've been playing this sport my whole life, and now it's afforded me the opportunity to to go to Toronto and go to Vancouver and Montreal and Edmonton, all these different cities, and so I definitely enjoyed it. It was a lot going on, but like I said, I was young and green and just happy to be there.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like change doesn't really scare you. You just kind of embrace it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's the number one skill in life. I was listening to a podcast, ironically, a couple of days ago, and they were talking about the number one skill, like, isn't being intelligent or being the strongest. You survive by being able to adapt. And so I think that
Yeah.
change is inevitable in this world. And so I think you have to be able to adapt to different situations and circumstances and be able to just kind of essentially be like water, be able to fit in different things and change shapes and stuff like that. So,
Yeah. And would you say that change is pretty hard for you or do you just accept it pretty easily?
I mean, I think it's hard. I mean, it's hard. It's
Yeah.
challenging for anybody. But I think, I think when things are hard, you have to embrace it, and either you're gonna take it on or run from it. And so I think it's not about what happens; it's about how you respond ultimately.
Yeah, that's really good insight. I think that change, like you said, is hard for anyone. But I always feel like there's a spectrum, I would say, about how much people really love change versus how many people hate change too. I actually
No,
like
for sure.
change a lot. Like
Really? Okay.
I would like go on an adventure every single day if I could, or travel to a new country every single day. But life.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I would. I
So
mean, I guess I embrace change. The only change I really can't stand is moving. Like I hate
yeah.
moving out apartments, moving, having to like move and move your sofa and your bed and all that stuff. Like moving sucks. So that's the only change I really can't stand.
Yeah, yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Then tell me a bit. I know you mentioned this briefly to me like off the podcast, but it seems like you and your sister are starting up a mental health startup for athletes.
Yeah, yeah. So we actually started a mental health company in 2021, which is now dissolved. But I can kind of just talk about what we were doing. But it was called EXTA, which stood for Excelling Through Adversity. And so
Mhm.
my
Mhm.
sister played college basketball, and obviously I played college football, and the impetus, but the reason and motivation behind us really starting was both of our experiences. We both dealt with injuries while we were throughout our college careers, and we kind of both felt an appreciation for the student athlete experience. And
Mhm.
ironically, when I had got therapy or went to see the sports psychiatrist, one of my teammates at the time had transferred to another institution uh, down the road, and he tore his ACL. And I was telling
Shoot.
him, I was like, well, I was like, hey, he was telling me, he was telling me had these mixed emotions and he felt like he should have never transferred. And I was like, hey, why don't you go speak to your sports psychiatrist? And he was like, well, we don't have
Hmm.
one. And I was like, what you mean you guys don't have one? He was like, we don't have that here. And I was like, that's when I realized that mental health resources was essentially a privilege. I had a luxury at NC State by having a sports psychiatrist, by having opportunity to go see
Yeah.
a therapist for free. So that wasn't offered, at institutions. And so that's when I became kind of curious about mental health and kind of did some research. And I saw that, there are 1,100 NCAA institutions, and like at the time, less than 115 had therapists, mental health
Wow.
therapists at their school. And so that's when we started Exta, which is essentially like a database of therapists that work directly with athletes, where athletes could sign up and they could find a therapist wherever they were staying at and kind of just be able to
Yeah.
communicate with a therapist offline. It was HIPAA compliant platform and stuff like that, but they could find a therapist, send them an email and try to solicit for therapy services.
That's awesome. Wow. And then
Yeah.
you guys are just starting that up right now then?
No. So we started that in 2021. We had some,
Okay, so it's in a few years
yeah,
now.
yeah. So we had some good movement initially, but we ended up, just moving on from the venture just because, not because of our passion, lacked, but just because we just kind of realized that we didn't have the manpower,
Yeah.
or just the capacity and the bandwidth to be able to do something that, that's such a big problem to solve. And so my sister got married and she had a baby. She was graduating business school, and I was still playing
Wow.
football and was still working a job. So it was a lot. It was a lot of different fires, and so we realized that, we didn't have the capacity, but we both still, have a passion for mental health for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Do you see within the NCWA like mental health being prioritized, or where do you see some improvement or need for improvement?
Yeah. So I mean, I got a chance to work with the governance staff team, the D1 governance staff team at the NCAA for a year as a post grad intern. We got a chance to see a lot of different things at the NCAA. And the NCAA is doing their due diligence for sure to be able to create, systems and processes for schools to, try to implement or follow when it comes to, mental health at their university. So I think the
Mm-hmm.
NCAA
Mm-hmm.
is definitely doing a great job of, sparking the conversation. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of sparking some different ideas for, athletic directors and athletic administrators to kind of think about different programs and resources they can implement into their own programs to kind of create some structure, around mental health for their student athletes.
Yeah, yeah. So you're saying that the awareness of mental health is definitely growing within the NCWA, double A.
Oh, for sure. I think the awareness is growing in the NCAA. I think the awareness is growing within the athletic community in general. I think
Mm-hmm.
conversations are increasing around mental health, and I think that people are starting to realize that there's two sides to the coin. You got physical health, but then you got your mental health. And both are equally important. And you need both to be successful.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I love how you say that too. So where are you at now then, Emmanuel? Emmanuel?
Yeah, so I just moved to Charlotte, literally like a month ago, a month and a half ago.
Oh wow, so recent.
Yeah, brand new. Was living in Indianapolis, Indiana, for a year, and then ended up moving to Charlotte for a new role. So I'm now working at Deloitte, and they actually have a collegiate athletics division that I have the opportunity to help out and be a part of. So they actually work with institutions. So.
That's awesome. And how does that intersect with your passion for mental health? Or does it really? Or is it pretty separate?
Well, I mean, I think it does because I think that Deloitte is focused on helping institutions solve problems, which indirectly impact the student athlete experience, and so I think that from a holistic lens, there's so many different elements of the student athlete experience that impacts individuals, and so in some ways, while this isn't directly tied to mental health, it still is indirectly tied to mental health because I'm having an opportunity to help institutions solve problems and develop strategies that ultimately will benefit and impact student athletes.
Yeah, yeah. Is there any topic on mental health exactly that you're like super passionate about?
Uh, that's a great question. Actually, I don't think I thought about that. I would say probably retiring. I had an opportunity to
Really?
retiring, transitioning, however you want to call it. I had an opportunity to write mental health blog called The Retired Athlete. Um, and in the blog, I was able to kind of just talk about the transition and how, they say athletes die twice. You die when your career is
Hmm.
over, and then you die, obviously, when we transition, um, from this life. But, I mean, I think that, when you retire and you transition, whether you retire, in high school or, you're done playing, in college or you're done playing, 10 years after you played pro, it's all hard. It's hard when can't play anymore. So I think
Yeah.
I definitely have a passion for that, for athletes transitioning outside of sport.
Yeah, because that's so wrapped up in your identity, I feel like. Especially, what's the average a football player retires? What age?
Oh well, the average, they said the NFL stands for not for long because the average NFL career is, I think, is 2.5 years or 3 years. It's no longer. It's no
Oh,
more than 3 years. So yeah, so I mean, if you graduate college at 22, you're talking about you might play till 25. So I mean, I stopped playing football at 26. So
yeah. Yeah, and just
so,
like the
so I'm still
whole.
I'm still a
Mhm.
young man. I
still,
guess.
still though, and like the whole identity of like playing something for, I don't know, you averagely probably play football for 10 plus years, and then retiring, you don't like you get older, you no longer play that sport. I feel like that would be such a big identity kick, and just mental health would be pretty hard. Yeah.
No, for sure. I think that's the hardest part. I think is the identity piece. Because you wake up and do something every day, and then once the thing about football that I think is different from other sports is like you can't really ever play again. Like once you're done, like once your last snap is over, you'll actually never take another snap again. Like if you play basketball in college and you're 40 and you want to go play at the YMCA, you can go play. If you swam in college, you're gonna get in the pool again. You know what I'm saying? If you played soccer in college, you can probably go play at a soccer game up the
Yeah.
street on a Saturday morning. But football is that sport. I want to say it's probably the only sport. Once you're done, you don't. I haven't put a helmet on in 2 years. And
Hmm.
so once you're done with it, you're done with it. And so I think that retiring is definitely a rough transition, but I think that athletes can kind of set themselves up to kind of alleviate how hard that transition is by you know pouring into other aspects of their identity outside of just being an athlete.
Yeah. Do you miss it? I know that's probably an underwhelming question, but
Oh no, definitely, definitely. I was telling Tony the other day. I got done working out and I was like doing some O line stuff in the weight room, like taking pass sets and stuff, just because like you kind of just that movement, those movement patterns are so familiar to you, and you don't really do it anymore. It's kind of like
yeah,
like
yeah.
kind of watch NFL and you see some guys you play with, some guys you kind of know, and you're like, this is crazy to just kind of see 10 plus
Hmm.
years when you're you know no longer young. And you're kind of seeing where you kind of ended up, and kind of just seeing, some guys still playing, some guys aren't. And you kind of just see how the cards played out. But definitely miss it for sure.
Yeah. When looking back at your football journey or even just career journey, is there anything that you would do differently?
No, I mean I think I definitely gave everything I had. As
Yeah.
far as emptying out the tank. I mean, I definitely think some advice I would give the younger generation is I wish I would have been just a little more intentional, a little more strategic
Hmm.
about my goals. I think that when I got to college, my goal was I want to play professionally. I want to make it to the NFL, which is such
Yeah.
a big goal. You got to have goals under that, right? And so I think I wish I would have just been a little more intentional in how I approached, my everyday life.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, that's really insightful and awesome that you can look back and just even pinpoint some of those thoughts too.
No, yeah, yeah. Hindsight's 2020,
Yeah.
though, right? Everybody can say that.
Yep. Yeah. Is there anything as a freelance writer that you're particularly proud of writing? Any piece, any article?
uh, a good question. So I'll probably say the article I mentioned earlier, the retired athlete. I got to share it with you after the podcast. But
Yeah, yeah.
I would probably say that, or I mean, when I was in college, I got a chance to write. I used to write for the school newspaper while I was in school. I mean, I got a chance to write an article about like the nutritional differences between our cafeteria versus non-student athletes. I was able to kind of do like a little study story or
That's
whatever. So
awesome.
that was pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So then how would you say and we talked a little bit about teamwork and community at the beginning of the podcast, but what would you say how does teamwork and community help you right now in just the working?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm still part of different communities. I mean, even though I don't have a football team, a formal football team, I'm still really close with a lot of guys I play with. I think it's important to make sure that you're around people that are like minded, and so I'm able to
Yeah.
still have conversations with like Tony and guys I play with who me and Tony are starting a business together when it comes to O line.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I'm able to still have conversations and part of a church. Just doing things to make sure that I'm staying around people and nurturing the relationships in my life and make sure that staying in the community, meeting new people like yourself, and making sure that I'm just developing a community and just making sure I'm always having that sense of a togetherness and knowing that I can always call somebody, reach out to somebody. If things are going on with me or something's going on with them, they can reach out to me.
Yeah, yeah. And then who inspires you to keep going, the motivation? Like, being in business, me and Tony talked about this last time too. Just like that's hard work in itself, like a different kind of perseverance, especially as an entrepreneur, starting a
Yeah,
company, etc. So, who
no, for sure,
inspires
for
you to
sure.
keep going, or who or what inspires you to keep going?
Well, I mean, who I would say definitely my parents. I mean, I think my parents kind of
Yeah.
instilled, a strong sense of perseverance within myself, and so, when I go through things, I know, who to call on, and I got a strong foundation with the Lord, and so I'm able to, tap
Mm,
into that. And so, I think my parents are definitely a motivation for me to kind of have a standard of excellence for myself. And I guess what motivates me is just, wanting to maximize all the opportunities, I get in life. Just making sure that, put my best foot forward and, I'm, trying to wring out the towels, squeeze all the lemon juice out the lemon, all that stuff. Just making sure that, I'm just doing everything I can possibly do to put myself in a better position.
yeah, yeah. And I know you kind of mentioned this before too, but what would you tell people who are in sports, college athletes? What advice would you give them to this day?
Yeah, well, I think I mentioned being intentional earlier. I would say definitely
Yep.
that. Be super intentional about just your everyday life, about what you want to do when you're done playing sports. How you want to go about your career. Just be super super intentional. Like treat your life like a business. You know what I'm saying? Be really really
Mm-hmm.
strategic about how you're moving. I'll also say just give yourself grace. I think you know
Mm,
in sports, I think we get so wrapped up in our performance and so wrapped up in our identities that we fail to give ourselves grace. And, we're humans first. And so we got to sit back and realize that, we're all human. We're all going to mess up. Um, we're all going to fail at some point. So I think it's important just to continuously just give ourselves grace and know that as long as you're waking up in the morning and you're putting your best foot forward and you're trying your best, that's all that truly matters in life.
yeah. I think sometimes I forget, especially athletes, they have such a performance expectation on them of like if they
Yeah.
don't succeed, then they're a failure because like
No,
if you
100%.
don't make the pass, if you don't catch the ball, like if you
Yeah.
don't make that one play, then everyone just
Yeah.
looks at you and think, "Wow, you could have done better."
Yeah.
And so
And no,
that's
it's, and
why
it's, and
grace
it's,
is
and
so
it's
important.
no, for
Yeah.
sure. I mean, I think it's human nature to, be upset with yourself and want to perform at
Mm-hmm.
your best, your level. But I mean, at the end of the day, we have to know that, the human experience is so much more than just your sport career. And, we tend to say, I mean, sports is forever going to live in me. I still say I'm an athlete.
Yeah.
But, you know what I'm saying? But At the end of the day, they call, um, and I actually had a chance to write this, but they call it a career. But I kind of hate when they say sports career because to me, it's not a career. It's really just a window of time. That's going to
Mm.
close eventually. And so I think we have to realize there's so much more to the human experience than just us being an athlete. We have so many gifts to offer to the world. So I think that you're kind of selling yourself short when you think that your performance on the field, on the court, is all you have to offer to the world.
Yeah, and I think that's such a lie too young people can buy into as well. Like even
Oh,
when we're
100%.
just
Yeah, 100%.
like even when you're in elementary school, like and
Yeah, yeah,
NFL, NBA, like those are the big hot shot names you want to go for.
yeah. No, and don't get me wrong, like that should be a goal. Like I wanted to play in the NFL. There's nothing wrong with having
Yeah,
those
yeah.
goals, but
Mhm.
those goals shouldn't be, for one, that shouldn't make or break you. And for two, that
Mhm.
shouldn't be, your athlete side shouldn't be the only aspect of yourself that you value. You have to value other
Mhm.
parts of yourself. So I think it's important to have those conversations with young people to let them know, like, yeah, you love football, but what else do you like? What else do you like to do?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Find some
Yeah,
other,
yeah.
because we all have a lot of talents. As people, you just
Yeah.
got to just find time to find them, figure it out.
Yeah. So what's next for you? Career-wise, journey-wise, business-wise?
Yeah, like I said, just kind of starting my consulting career, working here at Deloitte, just doing some stuff on the side. I still do some freelance writing stuff. Like I said, just mixing it up in some different hats, trying to start some businesses and just build. Try to build some things for myself, build a foundation, for myself and for the future family that I have and things like that. So that's kind of
Yeah.
where my
Yeah.
focus is. Trying to lose some of this football weight. So trying to get skinny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Just like I feel like the lifestyle changes from football to not being a football player too. That's all could be a whole different podcast.
Oh yeah, we could talk about that for 3 hours. Just I'm still eating like I gotta go to training camp, so
Yeah.
that's my problem. Yeah.
Selfishly, I want to know how much would you averagely eat as a football player? Like roughly how many calories per day would you say?
I don't even know the calories per day on it. Cause like, what's the recommended calories per day? Was it 1,200, 1,500?
1,500. Mm-hmm.
Oh, we was probably definitely 35
Doubling.
to 5,000. I would imagine for sure. Probably even 6,000.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, especially but during training camp, you're losing so much weight. I mean, I remember I used to me and this other offensive lineman, we used to sweat a lot during practice, and so like I would lose 8, 9, 10 pounds in one practice within 2 hours. And
Wow.
so if you lose that many pounds, you got to eat and replenish yourself. And so now I'm still replenishing myself, but not losing 8 pounds anymore. So
Yeah, yeah. Just because all that, like you're burning obviously a lot of calories while you're in
yeah,
football, and then you have to replenish that. So that's why you inhale so many more calories
yeah,
too.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Eating a little
Yeah,
too
yeah.
much.
Yeah, but Emmanuel, thank you so much for being Mindy in the mic. Before I just let you go or we wrap up, is it okay if I ask you some rapid fire questions?
Yeah, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Okay. Would you rather work out in the morning or evening?
Oh, the morning for sure.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
get your day going.
Well, get my day going, but honestly, just get it over with. Like, because if I
Yeah.
don't, if I wait till like 6 or 7, I'm probably not going. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
get it in the morning.
What's your favorite pregame meal?
Well, I used to eat like a lot of spaghetti. Used to always eat like spaghetti.
Ooh, that's like my
That was pretty
favorite
much the
food.
spaghetti, like water, and fruits and vegetables, obviously, but big
Yeah.
old plate of spaghetti.
Coffee or tea?
Ah, that's a hard one. I say tea. I don't really drink
Yeah.
coffee.
Mm-hmm.
What's your Starbucks
What?
order?
What's mine?
Yeah, what's your go-to Starbucks order? Since you asked me that.
Pumpkin spice latte in the fall, and then the winter probably caramel brulee. I used to. Okay, here's my rant. I really like eggnog, and because I don't know, it's good. And then they
Yeah,
stopped doing the eggnog latte in 2021, so it was
really?
sad.
Was it like
Yeah.
an egg? No, latte. Was it like alcoholic too? Or?
No, it was just I think
Okay.
a lot of people don't like eggnog. So they're like, no, might as well not
Yeah,
sell
it's
it.
definitely it's an interesting taste. I mean, I wouldn't say I don't like it. This is different. I wouldn't say I don't like it. It's different though, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. What's the best book or podcast on mental health that you listened to like, recently?
There's a book by a therapist named William Dwyer called "The Power of Intention." It's a
Yep.
great book. It's about mental health and just about just kind of pulling from the universe and the universal consciousness and realizing that we were created for to do something good in the world and kind of just seeing the value within ourselves. So it's a great book.
Sweet. Yeah. And then who's the last person that you called? I think you already answered that, but
Well, I called Tony's mom, but the last person I actually called my mom. I had
oh,
she's actually in
nice.
Charlotte. I had to help her out. Yeah, so
Yeah, yeah. Every time I ask people that question, it's always a family member. I think that's a good thing.
no, definitely, definitely. You gotta have you gotta have your local community, right? Gotta have your
Right.
family.
Sweet. Well, thank you so much, Emmanuel, for being a Mindy on the
For
mic.
sure,
And
for
thanks.
sure. Thank you.